We Got the Beat is another great episode of Full House. This is the 18th episode of Season 8. It's directed by John Tracy, and as always, there will be spoilers from now as I go through the episode, mostly chronologically, and share some thoughts. I'll mention a few brief things first of all, and then I'll get in with the main narrative. The introduction is very cute. Nicky and Alex come in, they tell Michelle a joke. It's absolutely adorable. We have a subplot that I honestly didn't care for. I didn't dislike it, I just found it a bit boring. It's introduced when DJ is doing her homework. She's doing this project where you have to make fictitious investments to see how the stocks would do. And that's definitely not something I did growing up, but it would certainly give me a better understanding of stocks because I know nothing. And when DJ's fictitious stocks do really well, Joey suggests to Danny, why don't we invest in something for real? And they do, and then they do well, and then it goes wrong, and it goes back and forth. And yeah, it was a nice way to bring Joey and Danny into the narrative, and DJ as well a little bit more, because they don't have any real interaction with the main narrative. But as a story, it was fine, I don't mind it. The main narrative, I think, is really, really great. Stephanie and Gia are playing guitar, they've decided to start a band, and Becky actually suggests they sign up for the Wake Up San Francisco Young Talent Search. And while they're not quite there yet, they do think that this could be a good idea. They have a friend who can play the drums. They need a keyboard player. And Jesse says that he does know a keyboard player. And that person is Kimmy. And there we have their band. And Jesse says that he will be their manager. And they have a week to prove that they are, I guess, good enough to enter the competition. Obviously, the band has literally just been formed. So they need to make sure they can gel and get on well. And we start to hear them perform, and they perform a song called I Saw the Sign, which I've seen this episode before. The song came flooding back to me. It's a really great song. I didn't know until watching it now, when I did some research, that it's actually a song written, or at least performed by, a band called the Ace of Base. That version is on YouTube. It's quite catchy. I quite liked it. So I got a bit of an education there, and we learned quite quickly. And this is where the main lessons start to kick in. They're not as invested in the music aspect as they are the other aspects. For example, they're rehearsing. It doesn't sound that great. Jesse tells them to take 5. And the girls then think that that means let's go shopping for outfits. They're clearly more interested in the image than the talent. And they later get into this big argument with Jesse, and it is basically the 4 of them against Jesse because they're not putting the work in. Obviously, they have a very short window of time here to get to a level where they can perform together as a band for this competition. Time is of the essence, and they're more interested in posing in front of the mirror. What is interesting is seeing Kimmy being one of the gang, and Stephanie isn't repulsed by that, and it's quite nice to see. It is quite nice. And they get into this argument with Jesse, as I said, and my favourite line is actually from Kimmy, because Jesse is going to quit, and Kimmy says, "We can't fire you, you quit," which I was amused by it. I liked it quite a lot. And then we cut to the talent contest. As I said, it's a really short period of time, and we have this great montage of talent, of all of these young performers, and it's a joy. There's a lot of variety in the talent as well, and the editing was great. Each talent had a good few seconds, and it was really enjoyable and very well presented. And then Derek and Lisa, Michelle's friends, perform, and it was adorable. Derek's little suit is just the cutest thing ever, and it was really great. And then it's time for Girl Talk to perform. That's the name of their band, and it sounded okay to begin with. It sounded okay. I guess they rehearsed the opening quite a few times, and then they started to go in different directions, and it became clear that they weren't on the same page, and they end up leaving the stage as one would. And Jesse goes to Stephanie afterwards, and I got really irritated by Stephanie here, but it's very clear why she felt this way. In fact, Jesse helps her realize why, but she immediately says to Jesse, "I hope you're happy because this was the most humiliating night of my life." But what's really interesting about this is that a few scenes before this, Stephanie was saying to Jesse, because Jesse was obviously getting on at them and complaining that they weren't working hard enough, Stephanie had said something to the effect of, "We're going to go out there and give this amazing performance." And Jesse just said, "I hope you're right." Because he doesn't want to be proven right. He wants Stephanie to do well and have a great time. He would rather that they did great without his help rather than proving that they did need to listen to him. And I think that was really a great thing for Jesse to do. But even with his encouragement, obviously it didn't work. And he very quickly helped Stephanie to realise that she wasn't angry at Jesse. She was angry at herself because he was right. They weren't focusing properly. They weren't focusing on the aspects that they needed to. And she realises that ultimately it was her own fault. And then Jesse comforts her by telling her a story of the time that when he was, I can't remember what grade he said, but I think it was about 13, 14 years old, he and his friends were more interested in their hairstyles than the music itself, and it didn't go according to plan. But then he ultimately confirms that you can't succeed with anything without hard work and discipline. And he also agreed that maybe he was a little bit too forceful with the way he was treating them. There are nicer ways to get the message across. Would they have listened if he had a more gentle approach? No, I don't think so. But it would have made Jesse look better. So I think there were some really solid messages there. The performances are great. The music is really catchy. I watched this yesterday. I'm still singing it in my head. And as I said, I listened to it on YouTube from the band Ace of Base. And I probably will listen to that again. So it's a really enjoyable episode. The bit with Joy and Danny I don't really care for. But as I said, it brings them into the narrative a bit more. So I don't mind it too much. And the main narrative, I think, is a great story with some really brilliant messages as well. And ultimately, it's a really fabulous episode of Full House.